Bit late this video. It's the top 10 songs from 1969. I previously did songs 11 to 20 and memorable tracks for this year, but been slow in getting my script together for this one, so let's get into it. At number 10 is Honky Tonk Women, of course by the Rolling Stones. Was released as a single on the 4th of July of that year in the UK. And it was a country version of a track called Country Honk, which was included on their album Let It Bleed. It topped the charts in the UK and the States, written by Jagger and Richard, of course, and they wrote it apparently while they were on holiday in Brazil, and it was inspired by what they described as the Brazilian Caparias, who are the inhabitants of rural, remote areas in parts of Brazil. They were actually vacationing on a ranch in Matawa in Sao Paulo. As I say, two versions of the song were recorded by the band, the familiar single and another version for Through the Past Darkly, plus of course Honky Tonk. Okay, so first to a dancing girl in a western bar who may work as a prostitute. The setting for the narrative in the first verse of the rock and roll version is in Memphis and Tennessee. I met a gin-soaked barroom queen in Memphis, if you recall the lyric. And the band initially recorded Country Honk. Brian Jones was present during these sessions. It was his last recording session before his demise. And the electric riff-based hit single on Honky Tonk Women was supplied by the new guitar player Mick Taylor. And what else have we got to say? Richards credited Taylor's input for influencing the track. Originally, this style of song was based on a Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers 1930s country song, but it got turned around by Taylor, who basically constructed the version that we're familiar with. Taylor, however, recalled it was more or less complete by the time he arrived, so believe what you want to believe. Okay, so that's Honky Tonk Woman. Time is The Liquidator. It's by the band Harry J and the All-Stars, a reggae instrumental song, and it reached number 9 in the UK singles charts. Why have I chose this? Well, it was a pretty memorable song at the time when I was 15 years of age. I was a hippie with long hair, and we weren't very popular with skinheads, and they tended to play this all the time. So I had a full whack on this one, literally, and then I grew to love it. A bit of the background: Carlton Carly Barrett was said it was originally for a song by Tony Scott called "What Am I to Do." Harry Johnson bought the rights from Scott and for Trojan, and Harry J All-Stars put the song together. And the core of the song was a lift from the rocksteady hit "Girl, I've Got a Date." Involved in the recording was the Hippie Boys, bassist family man Aston Barrett, drummer Carlton Barrett, and guitarist Alva Lewis. They later formed the core of the Upsetters and the Wailers. The organ was played by Winston Wright, and what else have we got to say? Very popular in the UK, this track, as I say, with skinheads, but also with British football teams. And they used to use the song at the beginning when the teams ran out onto the pitch at the start of the match. Chelsea used it, Wolves, West Brom, and Chelsea claims to be the first to have used it, and I'm not going to challenge that. And it was certainly Chelsea supporters that regularly used to try to kick the shit out of me. And so we'll believe that one, I think, and it certainly means that it's etched in the memory forever. For Once in My Life, written by Ron Miller and Orlando Murden for Mountain Records, of course, and recorded in 1965. But the version that I want to refer to was the one recorded in 67 by Stevie Wonder, very much an up-tempo arrangement. It was a top 3 hit in 1969, late 68. They delayed the release for over a year because Berry Gordy didn't view it as chart material. Wonder's version is often singled out by bassists as the greatest example of James Jamison's playing style, with no two bars of music played alike during the whole song, complemented by, of course, Wonder's wondrous vocals. The background vocals here are by the Originals and the Andanettes, and instrumentation by the Funk Brothers. You guessed it. Stevie played harmonica on it, and it's absolutely brilliant, and I love it. The selection is called Man of the World, recorded by Fleetwood Mac in 1969 and composed by vocalist and lead guitarist Peter Green. After the group signed to Immediate Records that year, the label collapsed shortly after the single release. But anyway, so it was the only single by Fleetwood Mac on that label. It had first appeared in 69, but in 2019 the band played the song live for the very first time during the Australian leg of their An Evening with Fleetwood Mac tour. Peaked at the UK at number 2 in 69, spent 14 weeks on the charts. Decades later, Mick Fleetwood commented about Green's mental health, and he said Man of the World was a very prophetic song, and we had no idea really at the time how much he was suffering from mental health problems. But if you listen to the words, it's crucifyingly obvious what was going on. A beautiful song, a poignant song, and Peter Green on vocal guitar, Danny Kerwin on guitar, John McVie bass, Mick Fleetwood on drums, and Jeremy Spencer on vocals. Number 6, this is Suspicious Minds by Elvis Presley. It was written in 68 and first recorded by the songwriter Mark James, but that recording failed commercially, and when Elvis cut it with producer Chip Moman, it became a number 1 hit and one of the most memorable hits of Presley's career. It's one of the singles that revived his career with chart success on his 1968 comeback tour. It was his 18th and last number 1 in the US. Session guitarist Reggie Young played on it. He played on both versions, in fact, and it's about a mistrusting and dysfunctional relationship and the need of the characters to overcome their issues in order to maintain that relationship. So, Elvis Presley on lead and harmony vocals and some guitar, Glenn Spreen on string and horn arrangements, Reggie Young guitar, Bobby Wood is on piano, Bobby Emmons on hammered organ, and Mike Leach on bass, and Gene Crisman on drums. And there's some trumpets, there's some trombone, and there's backing vocals by a number of female singers. So there we have it. Suspicious Mind, one of my favourites, it has to be said. Now, and this is My Chérie Amour. It was number 4 on the Billboard charts in August of 69. Third top 10 hit for Wonder, co-written by Sylvia Moy and Henry Cosby, and Cosby also produced the song. It was originally titled Oh My Marcia, or Marcia, written in 1966 by Wonder's girlfriend at Michigan School for the Blind. It's about a girlfriend, not written by the girlfriend, sorry. And it was developed latterly by the songwriters referred to, the Motown songwriters, who collaborated on the song with Wanda. And Moy came up with the intriguing title, which he saw as a combination of English and French. And of course, the Beatles had already done this style of song with their song Michelle, singing a quantity of it in French. So that was thought to be quite a popular idea. The song's instruments, with the exception of the horns and the strings, were recorded in Hitsville in November, and the horns and strings added later. Vocals by Wanda were the last addition, and again, the song wasn't immediately released, but it was then put on the B-side of I Don't Know Why. But after that song didn't really get much success, the DJ started to play My Cher Amour, and all the fans loved it, so they released it in the R&B charts, and it went to #1. And it was also extremely popular overseas in Spanish and Italian versions. So there we have it, My Chérie Amour. Now, number 4, and this is another song recorded by Elvis Presley, In the Ghetto, written by Mac Davis. Major hit in '69 as part of his comeback album, referred to earlier, that comeback tour. And the lyrics were written, as I say, by the country music songwriter and singer Mac Davis. In the Ghetto was recorded at the American Sound Studio sessions in Memphis. It was his first creative session in that year, and it was a huge hit, peaking at number 3. The song is about a boy who's born to a mother who already has more children than she can feed in a Chicago ghetto. And the boy grows up hungry, learns how to steal and fight, purchases a gun and steals a car, tries to run, but is killed. The song ends with another child being born in the ghetto, and the cycle of poverty and violence is recycled. The feeling of an inescapable circle is created by the structure of the song. Very powerful it is indeed, and I love it. And Elvis at the peak of his powers, I think. Number 3, I Heard It Through the Grapevine. It was written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong for Motown Records in '66, and first recorded by Gladys Knight and the Pips. And the Miracles recorded the song, but it wasn't released in 1966. But then Marvin Gaye got his fingerprints on it, and it was the second version to be recorded in the beginning of '67. But it took some time before it got the traction to success. Gordy again wasn't too in love with this song, and finally released it in October '68, and in '69 it just took off. The Gaye recording has since become an acclaimed soul classic. The lyrics tell the story of in the first person of the singer's feelings of betrayal and disbelief when he hears of his girlfriend's infidelity, only indirectly. And of course the phrase "through the grapevine" was established. That phrase is also associated with black slaves during the Civil War, a form of telegraph to them, the human grapevine. Whitfield, responsible for the production, included quite a lot of overdubbing of Gaye's vocals, with the Andernettes background vocals, and the Funk Brothers, of course, doing the rhythms. If you haven't heard this, were you sleeping? It's certainly one of the greatest soul songs of all time, and it's at my number 3. Ask yourself, what 2 songs have nudged ahead of Marvin Gaye? Well, I'm going to tell you. Number 2, Something in the Air. by a band called Thunderclap Newman. It's written by Speedy King, who also sang, and it was a #1 single in the UK charts, all over the radio. The song has been used for film, TV, adverts, covered by several artists, and it was also on their only LP, Hollywood Dream. In 1969, Peter Townsend, the Who, known as Pete, the Who guitarist, was the catalyst behind the formation of Thunderclap Newman. The concept was to create a band to perform songs written by Speedy King. He had already written Armenia City and Sky, the first track on the Who's Sellout. Townsend recruited jazz pianist Andy Thunderclap Newman, a friend from art college, and 15-year-old Glaswegian Jimmy McCulloch, who later played in Wings, and Keane played the drums and sang the lead. The production was by Townsend, who arranged the strings, and of course he chipped in by playing bass under the pseudonym Bijo Drains. It was originally called Revolution, but the Beatles had a song called Revolution, so they changed the title. This was a huge hit in the post-Flower Power Rebellion era. McCulloch's acoustic and electric guitars shine. King's drumming and falsetto vocals are particularly noted, and Newman's piano solo. So there we have it, my #2, and it's something in the air. It's by Thunderclap Newman. Finally then, my #1 for 1969. It's Space Oddity, written and directed by English singer-songwriter David Bowie. First released in 1969 as a single, then the opening track of his second studio album, David Bowie. His first album, self-titled, was a failure, but when Ken Pitt commissioned Love You Till Tuesday, a promotional film that was intended to introduce Bowie to a larger audience, Bowie wrote the song, a tale about a fictional astronaut named Major Tom, and its title and subject matter were partly inspired by Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, released in 1968. And Bowie's feeling of alienation at this point in career are basically the catalyst for the lyrics. Musically, it was a very complex song, and it marked a change from the music hall influenced sound of his debut to a sound that was more akin to a psychedelic folk, and it was also inspired to some extent by the Bee Gees. And so when it was released in 1969, it became a huge hit. Interestingly, Bowie's producer, Tony Visconti, declined to produce this one, saying it was a novelty record. So Gus Dudgeon was appointed to do the production, and it was a meticulously planned process. The recording featured Rick Wakeman, the Yes keyboardist, and he played on Mellotron and Stylophone, and it was mixed in both mono and stereo. And it was rush released ahead of the landing on the moon by the Americans, and the BBC used it as a background music during the coverage of the landing. And so everybody who was alive and kicking at that time remember it. And is it good? Yes, it is. And it is my #1. Cluttered with great songs, this, my #1 for 1969.